The idea is very simple. So, what I mean, law leads to death, legality leads to death. This is coming from Protestant Reformation. What it means is that it leads to a spiritual death because you have what's called the absence of love in your heart. If an officer of the law is going to uphold the law without love, then it's going to lead to violence and bondage, right? So if the officers had love in their heart for the man at Wendy's that they killed, they wouldn't want to put him in bondage. See, you have too many officers of the law represent law. They don't represent love. It's the problem with our society. So you have officers that represent law only. They don't represent compassion. They don't represent a way out. There should always be a way out of arresting someone, meaning a different pathway. It's not, you broke the law, that's the final line, that's it, we're going to kill you, we're going to get you in handcuffs, listen to what we say, you're going to die. That's the wrong way to handle law. That's the wrong way to handle de-escalation. That will lead to violence because it's too one way and it's too extreme and quick. The reason why I think in the future most beat police officers will lose their right to have a lethal sidearm is because this is going to continue to happen like it has been so far. I think there's about 12 officers that face prison time this year because of lethal force, either with a knee or with a gun. Most of them were with guns. Everything from murders that happen in people's living room to killing a babysitter. Okay, so what's happening is these officers are acting as if they have PTSD. They act too quick. They grab their lethal sidearm. Now, I am a believer that there can be a time for SWAT, right? In the fact that citizens have the right to own the guns, and that should be the case. Even in a lot of cases, citizens have the right to have the guns on them and things like that. The reason why officers should lose that right is because there's too many unarmed citizens or citizens that don't even have a gun that are dead because of this one-way thinking, this law completely be exact, be perfect, or I'm going to take you down and stun gun you, handcuff you, throw you, and put you right into bondage. It's the only way. Now, whenever I say, why didn't they give the guy at Wendy's some hamburgers rather than kill him? Well, think of it this way. What the officers should have asked themselves, what is a way using creativity, right? Creativity. A creative way to solve the issue. Well, buy him hamburgers, sober him up. You don't have to throw him right in jail. Where does he live? Drive him home, drop him off. Use improvisation. Call an Uber for him, just drop him off or whatever, park the car. A towing fee is $75 to $100. That is way better than killing someone, right? Towing his car and getting an Uber. What's wrong with that? That should be probably part of de-escalation, right? Because when you arrest somebody, you put their life in danger in the fact that you put fear, extreme fear in them. You take away their freedom and you put them in intense bondage. If you ever had handcuffs and thrown in the back of a car, you are in a tight spot. You lose your freedom. Too many officers get off on that and doing that. There's too many of them, right, that get off on that. You got to find police officers that are more like social workers and think more like ambulance drivers, or they're looking out about how can we extremely or aggressively de-escalate the problem. Aggressively go towards peace rather aggressively going towards aggression. So what are some creative ways, and they always have to be able to improv, to find ways around the situation of violence and bondage. They're too busy, how can I take this person's freedom away from them? Or even interrupting family. and domestic cases. That's why they're so horrible at domestic cases, because they're thinking more like, how are we going to be the knight in armor to the woman, take away the man's right to have that woman and get involved in the family. I mean, there's so much training that needs to be done on this, to police officers. So much training. They're in the dark ages right now. Okay, this is too many murders in 1 year. There's too many cases of domestic calls where it always either ends in somebody going to jail, or even in some cases somebody dying. There was a case where I think a domestic call where they had to tackle the guy and kill him. It's always tackling the guy and killing him. There's a case where the guy was an exterminator. They had a BB gun and they shot him with an AR-15. That cop didn't even serve any time because the guy was trying to pull up his underwear and he was drunk. Right? They called AR-15s over a BB gun. See what I'm saying? The mentality is wrong with the police officer. It's the way that they think. They think of it as a war, and they're a soldier, and that needs to probably stop. Because if they think of it as a war, then they think of it, well, how am I going to use my gun? I think it's enough. The lethal weapon is enough. The chokeholds are enough. They should have stun guns. Think about if they were shooting over stun guns. See, this is a perfect example. The Wendy's killing in Atlanta is the perfect example of why they shouldn't have lethal weapons. If he would have got his stun gun, the stupid stun gun would have fired off. It may have hit him. And hey, think of this. All police officers have to be stunned during training. I've seen it happen because I know someone in my family who was a police officer. They have to be stunned. And they even can be stunned and fall to their knees and get over it, right? Big deal. Stupid stun gun being thrown around, right? And he'll have 103 reasons why he should have used lethal force. There was no reason why he should even arrested the guy. There were probably 40 different ways they could have handled the situation peacefully without even putting handcuffs on the guy. There's too many of those types of officers that are out there today. So there needs to be major firing of police officers. Major firing. I can think of a case, personally, a domestic case, because I haven't seen my kids in about a year, where the police officer chose not to give me the right to even talk to my wife, right? Stepped in front of me, right? It's very one way, very much putting a wall up, right? I can do this because I have lethal force, and I have my buddies, they have pump shotguns, and they have lethal force too. It's always that way. It's very clear. I'm going to throw you in the back of the cop car and blah, blah, this, and, I've got the, Article 7455, whatever crap law, because they're like lawyers with guns kind of too, that allows me to do, There is no reason for that man to die at Wendy's. There is no reason for that man to die in a chokehold in Minneapolis. There was no reason for Amber Geiger to go into the living room and shoot that guy. There was no reason why Aaron Horde shot the babysitter through the window in Fort Worth. There's no reason why I can't even think of all the people that have been killed by police this year. There's a time for reform. There is a time to aggressively go towards love rather than aggressively go towards law, which will lead basically to at least a spiritual death, right? Because they don't have love in their heart. So these are the things that they should be training. 90% of the training should be, how can I aggressively go towards love and avoid a violent situation? And then a few percent training on using a stun gun and take away their freaking lethal force. Boy, that would make the devil upset, wouldn't it? That there'd be less killing on the streets. Now, there may be one problem with that would be they may have to call in SWAT in a situation. And here's some other tactics that I've been thinking about. Why not invent like drones that can follow someone that's running and tag them in a certain way, where it can be done in through the computer, because we got these programs that are like Waze and Google Maps and stuff that can follow him. Big deal. So he got away. He was drunk, so he ran away. Let him run away. That'd have been de-escalation. Let him run. There's too many cops chasing down these criminals and then killing them. So let him run off. He's got the stun gun. Now, of course, there's another thing too. If they don't have lethal weapons, then how could, in a case where sometimes the cop is struggling over their lethal weapon, that would go away. They'd be struggling over a plastic stun gun, right? So the SWAT would have there'd be a time where they could call in the SWAT, and then the SWAT could set up all these, and then they could have megaphones and all this stuff to try to calm them down. Gives them more time to make decisions. It's about timing, right? The time runs out, and the next thing you know, they're killing. And I'm telling you, man, it's going to continue on. There needs to be major reform. I think this database thing is good too, because we're going to be able to find these certain police officers that no longer deserve to be police officers because they're going to get too many complaints against them. And these databases should be a public database, right? So let's say on the public database, you get arrested by a police officer. Well, you should have the right to file a complaint against the police officers. The police officers should only have so many complaints against them because they didn't de-escalate the problem. Well, why was I arrested? Well, in the report that goes on the database, they can explain this is what happened, and they can, pull up their body cam and find out exactly what went on. So there needs to be kind police officers that go towards merciful decisions rather than decisions that are going to lead to either a person going to jail in handcuffs and bondage and scaring them very badly because people don't want to lose their freedom, and people don't want to lose their life, right? So this mentality of I'm a soldier with a gun and I'm going to hunt you down and kill you needs to go away, and it needs to be more like social workers following them, making sure there needs to be more supervision on stops, more cameras, more body cams and microphones and things to protect people of any color, especially people of color, because in most cases this year, I think it's 12 cases this year, it's happened with people in color. Well, 12 different officers that were either white or, I think in Floyd's case there were mixed races, but they were white, and I think there was a couple like an Asian, and then I don't know the other races, but anyway, regardless, there has to be de-escalation. And the idea is, how am I going to solve the problem without either putting extreme fear into the victim or the person that's suffering from the possible arrest, right? So if someone is drunk, what is a way that we could solve the problem in a safe way? At least try. At least try. If they at least try and say, hey, can we buy you some hamburgers? Can we buy you what you wanted at Wendy's? I mean, it may cost a little bit of tax money, but what's $5 or $6 at Wendy's that could have saved the guy's life? See, they weren't thinking. Their only decision is arresting, and it should be the other way around. How can we solve the problem peacefully? So they should be called peace officers, right? That's another thing. Instead of police officers, we should change their names to peace officers. So they're out to find ways to create a peaceful situation. Now, I was in a situation not very long ago where it was a female officer, and she did find a way to solve the problem, and it ultimately led to a peaceful resolution because of common sense. It involved a tow truck and someone that that was trying to change their tire, and they may have not been. I don't make any judgment calls, but that's the thing, is never assume. And also there's a good book called The Four Agreements. Be impeccable with your words, never assume, don't take anything personally, and then the last one, of course, is always do your best. So I think the idea is it should always lead to peace, right? We got to find peace officers, not these. Now, the reason why in England they don't carry lethal weapons, and I think they have like a SWAT team that can come out, but then the citizens can't have the weapons. So it would be a weird thing, but there's how many more cases are going to happen before we start to have drastic measures taken where they are only allowed to wear stun guns, for example. So they're stunning each other. Someone runs off with their stun gun, and then they have another stun gun, and they're stunning each other rather than having to use lethal force over someone running away that's drunk. Obviously, that's another wrong case. In the middle of all this rioting, in the middle of all of this trouble, and all this chaos, that officer had the gall to pull out his gun, shoot an unarmed man that they already knew was unarmed. They already gave him a breath test, so he grabbed he grabbed a non-lethal stun gun, I don't even know if that was even discharged. Did he even know how to discharge it? And I thought a lot of them have like fingerprint control on the weapons anyway or something. That's another thing too that we could look into. Fingerprint or, some type of passcode on the, lethal or non-lethal stun gun. At least a stun gun have like a passcode where they can't deactivate it. So if they run off with it, it's just a piece of plastic that they have. Same thing with their guns too. For now, until they lose the right to kill people. I just think there's more peaceful ways to solve problems. One way to solve the problem is to go towards love and mercy rather than carnage, chaos, and killing.